Good evening, everybody. It's 9:30 on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast on a Monday. That must mean it's time for your weekly Calamity Jane live stream. James, how are you doing this daylight savings time day thing?
Not bad, not bad. I mean, yeah, sometimes it kind of throws you off, right? But for me, I'm doing just dandy. How
That's
about you?
good.
Did you adjust to daylight savings times by waking up on time and all that stuff?
I adjusted by just not going to sleep before 2 a.m.
That's a good way to get around it.
I was coming over from a party at 1, which isn't that late for me, but the problem was the party was an hour away. So
Hmm.
it took me an hour to get home, and I'm like, oh, it's 2. I'm so ready to go to bed. So I take my dog out to potty, and I look at my watch again, and it says 3 a.m. And I'm like, what? What? Oh, God, it was daylight savings. So I didn't know. Like, I had no idea that it was going to be on Sunday. And
Hmm.
so when I look at my watch, and all of a sudden it's become 3 a.m., it was, it
Yeah.
was not fun. And then there was some drama with my poor old girl. And so it took me about an hour to get everything settled. So I didn't actually go to bed until 4 a.m.
Oh my
Despite
gosh.
despite my best intentions.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, as much as annoying as how annoying daylight savings times is, I definitely enjoy fallback more than spring forward.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know what I would take is just not changing anymore.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Like
Yeah.
my company that I work for has a couple of international employees, and
Uh-huh.
all of their daylight savings time changes are in different schedules as ours. And so whenever it happens, we inevitably forget to tell the international employees that it's
Oh,
happening.
jeez.
And so they end up missing meetings because all of a sudden everything is like an hour sooner than they were expecting,
Yeah.
or later, or whatever, depending on which direction you're going. And it's just so unnecessary. Like the whole thing is just so unnecessary, you know? Um,
Yeah.
the idea that shifting the clock by an hour in either direction makes any difference in productivity or energy savings, or it's total garbage, and I'm ready to be
Yeah.
done with it. Like, I'm gonna run for political office, and I'm gonna be a single platform politician. End daylight savings time.
Yeah, it's rooted in antiquity, right? Meaning like it helped the farmers out back in the day because of adjusting for daylight for waking up with the chickens or something. I don't know what it is.
So
But
the
I
yeah
thought that was the origin
So there
of
there
it.
is some rumors of that, but most farmers you'll talk to, they're like, I don't get
We
up
don't
based on
care.
the clock. Yeah, I get up based
Yeah.
on sunrise. Whether that's at 6
Yeah.
a.m. or 5 a.m., it makes no difference
Yeah,
to me.
which makes perfect sense because
Right.
animals do the same thing.
Right, exactly. Like, farmers do not care about the clock. Um,
Yeah.
I actually did some looking into this, but in the United States, it was experimented with. Even Benjamin Franklin recommended doing it at one point. Um,
Hmm.
the origins of it go back to as far as the 1700s, but in the United
Hmm.
States, when it finally stuck permanently, um, it was shortly after World War One. It was passed
Uh-huh.
as a temporary initiative, uh, as a means of conserving energy. If the thought was, as if we could get one more hour of daylight, there would be less coal burned, less oil burned, etc., etc. Which,
Oh, okay.
of course, was total bubkiss. I mean, it
Hmm.
was totally nonsense. I mean, it's that kind of
Hmm.
flawed logic that is such a huge problem.
Yeah.
Um, and then, unfortunately, and originally it wasn't like a federal mandate. It was a suggestion by the feds that
Hmm.
states could opt in or opt out of. And
And
then
yeah.
in the 50s, it was codified as federal law.
Oh, okay.
Um,
All right.
so there you go. There's your brief history of daylight savings time in the United States. I know that's
Well,
exactly
let's
what you were hoping for this year, or this
no.
night.
Yeah. Well, if anything, um, let me know if you need help running your campaign. I'll help you make some signs, some
Okay,
yard signs.
excellent. But we
If
just have to
anything.
make sure we do it before the time changes. I don't want it getting too dark too fast.
Yeah. True. Well, that's a nice little end to our intro for tonight
Yeah,
as
that was
we
a that
kind
was a
of
bit of a longer intro. Yeah, the
yeah.
the cold open for night lasted way longer than it usually does. What are we
All
working on
right.
tonight,
So
James?
Yeah, so let me I couldn't think of a cool way to go into just rolling into uh share, into
Yeah.
going into screen mode. But yeah, but it was nice. Yeah. Anyway, here we are. We're going. Um all right, so based on last week, I did some rough animation for Calamity whistling for Tinsel to come on over, and tonight Tinsel comes into frame, and I'll animate this sequence of her lifting up her tail
Mm-hmm.
to get onto Tinsel to get
Nice.
going
All
to
right.
get her work out of the way. So I've gone through and I have this master file that we've been kind of adding to. So I
Mm-hmm.
already had
Mm-hmm.
this particular pose kind of pretty much done.
Nice.
So I'll be using that, and then yeah, but I'll draw whatever else extra we need as we go forward. But that's the plan for tonight, is I'll be doing this kind of stuff while we talk about whatever. And
That's good.
boy, I have some whatevers for you, but I
All right.
know
No, I
probably have
jeopardized it yesterday. Last week. Let's hear it. No, no, no. We know what road I would go down. We don't need to go down that
yeah.
road.
It's kind of a
Um,
gimme with Monster Hunter, right? I'm
right,
assuming
right
it's Monster
now.
Hunter.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we definitely want to put a bookmark on that,
We'll put a
but
pin in it.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, but of course, I'm almost starting to wonder whether we should just put spoiler tags in our YouTube stream because sometimes I want to just talk about spoilers, and
Yeah.
then at least we can our warn viewers that we're going to do that. But no, I refrain from doing that tonight. But I do want to talk about
Okay.
Severance, the latest episode,
Okay. Yes.
and this is a great and this is a good place to pick up because I think you and I disagree on this episode just based on because I got your opinion on through
Yeah.
text and you really
Yeah.
liked the episode. For me, I hated the episode.
Really interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm starting to, my fears from before are starting to they're starting to simmer to the top a little bit. I'm
Mm-hmm.
starting to get worried a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So in episode 8, I mean, there's not, it kind of revolves around, well, one of the side characters, Miss Cobel, and
Mm-hmm.
talks about her stuff, and we can still avoid spoiler stuff for the most part. But I did not care about where she went and what were we doing and why is she doing all, there was
Mm-hmm.
all this stuff, and then we finally get the answer, but I felt like my time was wasted.
Mm.
Just give me the beep 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 answer because I didn't need to watch her go through sleeping
Mm-hmm.
or doing other stuff and talking to random characters. I don't care about other characters at this point. I know I'm not going to see them again. Some person in the corner, some person staring at her oddly. I know I'll never see them again, so I don't want to put any value of my time watching that. I just want to go to the story. And I'm gonna admit I miss Irving, I miss Dylan, I miss everybody else. And I don't care about Miss Cobell, who's kind of, and we could say that she's kind of a villain, sort of, so I don't want to know anything more about her. And I found her still uninteresting, even less the mystery was better before this episode for me, where I could fill in some of the gaps. But I mean the ending was okay. It adds something other thing that maybe can flip the script a little bit. But yeah. Anyway, that was my take. But your take is I'm assuming way different. I'm
I
assuming
I
you're
mean not really. I mean yes, in that I enjoyed the episode, but it certainly wasn't
okay.
my favorite episode.
Okay.
I
All
think
right.
the biggest complaint I had is exactly what you're saying. I miss Helly, I miss Dylan, and I miss
Mm-hmm.
Irving. And it's now two episodes in a row that those
Yeah.
characters haven't been in it. Mark wasn't even in this episode, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and like maybe I'm just a stick in the mud, but those four characters are who I care about, right?
Yeah.
I want to see their antics. I want to see their trials and tribulation. Those who are
Mm-hmm.
invested in. Patricia Arquette is a great actor, and
Mm-hmm.
she's great as Harmony Cobel.
Yes.
Um, but she is not the anchor of the show, right?
Yeah.
And in that way, I was disappointed in it, right? I mean, like by the end of the episode, I'm like, okay, that's great. This was a long enough detour. Let's get back to Helly and Dylan and Irving and Mark, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so that aside, I still liked it. Like
Mm-hmm.
Severance is in my opinion, takes a very interesting page out of the David Lynch handbook of television making. Right, there
Okay.
are strong undertones of Twin Peaks that run through the DNA of Severance. Right, like I don't think
Hmm.
Severance would exist in its form if Twin Peaks hadn't come before it. And
Hmm.
famously, I love Twin Peaks.
Hmm.
And this show felt very much to me like one of the weird um, sort of side quests that Twin Peaks would go on from time to time, right?
Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
and I don't think there's anything. I totally see your point about keeping Miss Cobell more of a mystery, but I think for the sake of the show, it actually answered questions for me, right?
Okay.
Which is something that we've been, talking about, recently, how they've been opening an awful lot of mystery boxes and haven't really closed any of them.
Hmm.
This episode answered several questions for me, like where did she come from? Why was she the head of macro data refinement? Um, or the severed floor, not specifically macro data refinement. The
Hmm.
revelation that she's actually the one who invented the severance technology.
Hmm.
Um, Understanding a deeper scope of Lumen, right? Like knowing that its current corporate modern face um, is just the latest iteration of a deeply corrupt company that has existed, for God knows how long at this point, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, the just the commentary on the nature how um, like corruption in the world of business can actually destroy entire people's lives. I thought that that was interesting, right? And the
Hmm.
parallels between what happened to Cobell and what is happening to the main four characters, I thought was valid too. Like she's not severed, but her
Hmm.
experience as a child, in the same way that the innies are very much children, there were strong parallels
Hmm.
there that I really appreciated. Right,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
there were aspects of the episode that I found really entertaining. Um, and again, Patricia Arquette is just really knocks it out of the park as this character.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so just from a purity of just enjoying a character performance,
Hmm.
I really like that, right? So I did like the episode for those reasons. I am very ready for them to get back to the main storyline and start bringing some of the storylines that they started this season to at least a direction of a resolution, right?
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
because there's 2 episodes left. It looks like there's 9 episodes this season.
Yeah.
So 2 more television hours to kind of start bringing some of these questions to a resolution, right?
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be all of them. Like the only question that was truly answered at the end of last season is, what does it look like when an innie gets into the regular world? And that was
Hmm.
revolutionary, and it changed it completely flipped the whole show on its head, and it was super great, right? So they don't, but there was a lot of unanswered questions last season, and so I don't need all of them to be answered, but I want to feel like there's some sort of forward momentum. And
Hmm.
um, what started as a really interesting experiment, which I thought was just going to be like kind of a one-off thing, with the work trip, out in the wilderness episode, which was great. But
Hmm.
then the next episode um, is mostly just about relationships, and it really it doesn't really have anything to do with the larger Lumen conspiracy. I mean, it was interesting from the standpoint of characters interacting with each other and understanding, like what Dylan's relationship is with his Audi's wife, what Irv's relationship is um with what's his face's character,
Walken's
Christopher
character. I
Walken's
can't remember his
character's
name.
name,
Yeah.
right? And the
Yeah.
fact that
Hmm.
Walken has, John Noble as his husband, and then of
Hmm.
course Mark and Helly consummating the relationship for real,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
But that
Yeah.
that was, it still felt like the story wasn't advancing. There wasn't any forward momentum on the overall narrative. And then from that to go into um the Gemma episode, which was great, right? Like
Yeah. Hmm.
Dyken, oh shoot, I don't remember her last name. Anyway, she was great.
Hmm.
Like she did a great job. Every actor in the show is phenomenal. But again,
Yeah.
it's backstory. It's not really moving the plot forward. And then to immediately go into yet another backstory episode, which again
Yeah.
fills in a lot of blanks. Great character performance opportunities. It's 4 episodes now, and the forward momentum of the story has completely stalled for me. Now,
Yeah.
I mean, I say that now. Like maybe on Friday, the next episode comes out, and it like all comes together,
Okay.
and it's just
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
massive explosion, right? And you're like, oh, I
Sure.
understand why they did that. I mean, that's totally possible.
Hmm.
Um, but right now, yeah, I'm just sort of a little fatigued because I do feel that the show has sort of spun its wheels in the last half of the season, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh. Yeah, you've added some flavor to that episode that I wasn't really seeing before because I was kind of annoyed watching it, but the
mhm,
parallels are kind of fun now that you mentioned about Cobell's life, how it's been upended as well, all that kind of stuff. But and then there was a question answer, but it was a question I never cared about.
right,
And that was my issue is great. You answered a question I didn't
right.
was not looking for an answer
That's fair.
for.
Yeah, yeah,
You
right. I
know,
wasn't
that's the only
asking who
thing.
invented severance
Yeah, I
technology.
didn't
Right,
care. Like
right.
I know it's an evil device. I don't care who the origin. If the origin point is this person, whatever, doesn't matter to me. All I care about is Mark
Mm-hmm.
and his buddies and his relationship. And I want to know what happens to him
Mm-hmm.
and stop getting off the path. But you know, I think this is sometimes I mean my trust isn't broken and I have to trust the writing, and
Mm-hmm.
they want to take us on a journey and then this is their way of slow building. I just feel like I mean, last week's episode was about Gemma, perfectly understandable to do at least one episode dedicated to
Yeah,
Mark's
yeah.
whole purpose in life to doing this. But yeah, but this one felt more like a filler episode, but I don't want to say that just yet, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how valuable this information is going to go forward in the next episode, but I still trust him.
Yeah,
I'm annoyed, but yeah, but not I'm not hate watching. Let's put it that
yeah.
way.
For me, each of the last 4 episodes taken as an individual episode, they're like,
Hmm.
wow, what an interesting hour of television. But
Uh-huh.
when you
Uh-huh.
put them all right next to each other, back to back to back to back like that, and you drift so far away from the central questions that I think most fans want to explore, you run the risk of losing focus. And I know that's
Yeah.
happening to me right now. I mean, I don't know. It seems like you may be feeling the same thing, but
Yeah. Hmm.
um, and and so yeah, that's my biggest complaint, right? Like when episode 4 came out, amazing. It was just absolutely amazing, right?
Hmm.
Um, and if the Gemma episode had been that, I would have been like, wow, that's so crazy, right? Um,
Yeah.
and same with the Cobel episode last Friday. But it's again, it's like boom, 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 boom. Like spread this stuff out, right? Like you've already been greenlit for
Hmm.
season 3 and season 4, right? You don't have to do all of this right now. You can fill in the blanks later. And
Hmm.
again, I'm saying this not knowing what the next 2 episodes are, right? Like we could
Yeah.
be talking, after those 2 episodes come out, and you're like, oh my god, they were playing 5-dimensional
Yeah.
chess, and we had no
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
clue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but at least right now, I'm getting a little fatigued with the side quests, and I'm ready to get back onto the main story.
Yeah. Okay. So
So
it's kind of funny. I thought for sure we'd have more of a heavier debate. We still did, but
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
we're pretty much we are actually more in agreement than not in this case. It's not a Spider-Man situation or Captain America situation at all.
yeah.
So I was expecting that, but it's
Rotten hell,
okay.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's not like that at all.
Um, yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like it might have been more of a discussion. Um, if like this was it would have been a different discussion rather. If like the Cobell episode was the only one of the sort of divergences this
Uh-huh.
season, but coming
Yeah.
like just again, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, so this is the last time I'll reference it. But 4 episodes like this, it's like, okay, guys, let's let's get back on the path again. Come on, Kier
Yeah.
Egan is waiting for us. Let's get back to that.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, because like the first 3 episodes, like it was exactly what I was looking for as a from a continuation of
Yeah.
season one, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Right. I mean, I want them to be on the severed floor more than they have been this season. Right. They've been on the
Yep.
severed floor for 4 episodes this season,
Hmm.
and like that's only half the season. You know. Um.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. We'll see. I mean, these are all like it's. I always feel like I have to contextualize these because like it's still one of, if not the best show on television, right? But
Hmm. Hmm.
when you set the bar so high, you
Yeah.
there it's like sometimes the only direction to go is down. But that being said,
Yeah.
down for Severance is still better than
Yep. And 90% of everything
95%.
else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. All
all of it
true.
needs to be contextualized a little bit.
Yeah.
And to say that that yeah, I'm complaining a little bit, but it's still like I can't wait for Friday's episode, So
Hmm.
yeah. So there's that's there you go. There was no ending. I couldn't find like a nice little button to put on it, so I just sort of tapered out there.
It's okay. I mean, we might as well just treat it like a Severance episode and let it
Yeah.
just kind of end the way it does, and
Marinate.
we'll resume next week or
Mm-hmm.
whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
But besides, we have more to talk about, which is your
But you know what I
your
actually
hunting.
yeah, I mean we could go down. I mean, Montreal is the same way, right? Like I have complaints, I have thoughts,
Hmm. Hmm.
but when the game is when the designers just let Monster Hunter be Monster Hunter, then it's
Hmm.
incredibly fun to play, right?
Yeah.
Um, I have finally finished low rank, and I'm now in high rank, and all of the reviews that I've been reading are 100% accurate. The story, with all the cutscenes and stuff,
Hmm.
which is the entirety of the low rank quests, is just a tutorial, right? You
Okay.
do once you have the credits roll and you get back into the game, and there's like a brief cutscene explaining, oh my god, the calamity that we thought was the calamity wasn't actually the calamity. There's a bigger calamity. I mean, it's just it's always
Hmm.
the same
Yeah.
storyline of Monster Hunter.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, uh, um, you do one quest as sort of an initiation in a high rank, and then all of a sudden, all of these features that have been locked away unlock, and you're like, oh, look, it's the Monster Hunter that I know and love again, right? um,
Hmm.
and I connected with some friends, and we played online all day on Sunday, and it was
Hmm.
fun. The multiplayer is embarrassingly bad. Their UX team that put together their multiplayer infrastructure for the game should be ashamed of themselves. Um, it's embarrassingly bad.
Yeah.
But once you watch enough YouTube videos and read enough articles to understand what each of these weird esoteric options do, then you can get online and it plays fine. I just, it's so weird because Monster Hunter Rise did it so well, right? Like,
Hmm.
I never had any problems playing online. It was simple, it was concise, it functioned exactly the way you'd expect it to. I don't understand why they didn't just do that again. Um, but I don't know. What are you gonna do, right?
Hmm.
So there's like,
Yes.
yeah, go ahead.
You were saying before that this is so Monster Hunter split up into two different teams, and you can
Yeah,
see the philosophy once again
yeah.
kind of bear itself out with this iteration versus
Rise.
Rise's
Yeah.
iteration, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's also that's kind of taking place, and from what you described, it sounds pretty much like it's a sequel to World rather than
Yes.
a sequel to Rise, right?
Yes. It 100% is a Secrets to World. And while there are some ideas, because there's always a little bleed over between the two teams.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Sure.
so there is a few ideas that they took from Rise, but a vast majority of their inspiration, or holdover legacy features is from Monster Hunter World, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and as we've belabored on this stream for years now, it should come to no surprise to anyone that Monster Hunter World is my least favorite Monster Hunter, and I've
Hmm.
played basically every Monster Hunter since 2012. Um, so um, so yeah, I've been playing for 20 years, and Monster Hunter World is
Wow.
my least favorite. Over 20 years, actually.
Yeah, it's
Um,
crazy.
yeah,
Crazy to think that this been around that long
it's
as a
been around
game.
even longer than that, right? Like Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate came out in 2012. Oh no, not 20 years, 10 years. Sorry, it's been like 15 years. Sorry, but
Okay.
the
Yeah.
franchise is 20 years old. It started
Hmm.
back on the PlayStation 2. The original Monster Hunter was
Hmm.
on the PlayStation 2. Um, I didn't get into it obviously until 3 Ultimate on the Wii U and the 3DS. But so yeah, so the fact that Wilds is a sequel to my least favorite of the whole franchise that I've played, and I have since gone back and played the earlier games. Like you can download them on the iPad and a few other like legacy platforms. Um, Although I never really played them extensively. Monster Hunter is a game that's hard to go back and play older versions as it iterates and improves upon itself over time. Plus, the original Monster Hunter doesn't have gun lance or charge blade or insect glaive, like all weapons that I use, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, but um, that being said, I do like Wilds a lot more than Worlds, despite now that I'm in the actual game, right? Now that I'm done with the 20-hour long tutorial and I'm 10 hours into the actual game, I definitely like it better than World. Um, um, but yeah, it's definitely it pales for me at least. It pales in comparison to Rise and Sunbreak.
So far.
So far, right. Again, I mean, you know, maybe as I continue to move along the story such that it is on this new difficulty level, I'll have a my opinion will shift again, right?
Hmm.
Um, but at least right now, it is my second least favorite
Man,
Monster
that's
Hunter game.
rough. Yeah, that's rough. Not a glowing endorsement for me to go out and try to get this game right off the bat.
I don't personally think it's worth $70.
Yeah,
I'm a diehard, so Capcom gets my money, right?
sure.
It's
Yeah.
it's just like the
Like,
Fry take my money meme, right?
yeah. Hmm.
And I acknowledge that, I admit that, and I'm not ashamed to say it. Um, but like, if I were to recommend Monster Hunter to a friend, it would not be this game, right? It would be go play Monster Hunter 4, go play Monster Hunter Generations, or ideally go play Monster Hunter Rise. Um, so yeah, without a doubt, Rise remains my Monster Hunter poison du jour. Um, so much so that like as I've been playing Wilds, I'm like, man, they did this so much better in Rise, and I stop and ask myself, do I just want to go back and like start a new character and play Monster Hunter Rise again?
Oh, that's a
Um,
bad sign. I mean, if you're pining for the previous installment of the game, I mean, I don't know. This says a lot. And again, it makes me wonder, for me as a more of a casual fan, if
mm-hmm.
I've been spoiled by Rise, and maybe I should just hold off a little bit because you had to deal with my rants and my venting over Rise's issues with
Mm-hmm.
UI, UX stuff, and to
Mm-hmm.
just hear that they just embraced it even more in
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I just
so yeah, like just as this is like the most okay, these are the two most egregious examples. Online infrastructure and the secret, which is the Palamute kind of corollary that's actually just really a chocobo, right?
uh-huh.
Um,
Hmm.
so the online play, when you launch the game, um, you have several selections to choose from. You can launch into a recommended lobby, which is just a random lobby. You can
Hmm.
look for a particular lobby, you can create a private lobby, or you can play online single player. Now, online single player is basically what the default mode for Monster Hunter Rise was, right? Where you go into a quest, you hunt alone, you can fire an SOS flare or set a quest to automatically look for online players, right? And it's
Hmm.
great. It works exactly the way you would imagine it to. Um, if you play in any other sort of lobby, then you will see other players in that lobby in the home base areas. If you leave the home base areas, you won't see any other players. You only see other players in the home base areas, which is super weird because it's all totally integrated. Like there's no loading screen. You just ride out of the base into the other environment, and if you see other players do it, they just sort of disappear, and it doesn't make any sense, but whatever. So beyond lobbies, you also have squads. And what squads are basically private lobbies, but those are separate than actual private lobbies. So private lobbies are just lobbies that you can create with a password, whereas squads are persistent private lobbies that you can invite
Oh,
people to.
jeez.
Right. It's unbelievably bad.
Why?
Um, and that's not even the end of it. There are also link parties, and link parties are groups that up to four, and they're just like people that you put together in a link party. You could be in
Ah,
different lobbies, you could be in different squads, but if you're in the same link party, every time you start a quest, it notifies everybody else in your link party that you started a quest. But that's not even the end of it. There are a subset of link parties called environment link parties.
are
And
you serious, man?
this
You're
is
not.
100%
You're not just
accurate.
you're
Nope,
not trolling me here, are you? I
nope.
mean, unbelievable.
This is actually how the online infrastructure is set up. Um, so if you do want to just sort of roam around in the environment with other players, right? Like I said, because in a regular lobby, once you see someone leaves the home base, they just disappear. If you want to like leave the home base and roam around on your chocobos with other players, you have to join a link party with other players, then create an environment link party and invite everybody in your link party to the environment link party. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, why don't I just do an environment link party and never do anything else? Because it seems like that's really what you want. Well,
Uh-huh.
you can't do actual quests if you're in an environment link party. You can run around in the environment, you can kill monsters, you can do all the stuff, but if you actually want to advance the storyline, if you actually want to complete some of the side quests, if you actually want to complete the high rank story, you have to leave the link party. Um,
Oh
or
God,
the
man.
environment link party, excuse me. It's literally, I don't understand how a network architect or the UX designer, the multiplayer UX designer, could honestly get in front of a room of people and go, here's this design, here's the design for the multiplayer. And then not only that, um, like um, how the people in the room hearing this pitch could go, yeah, that's the one, right? It's just online lobby systems. All of this has existed in video games for almost 30 years, right? Like
Yeah.
it was
Mm-hmm.
basically mastered in Doom to a certain extent, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How Monster Hunter Wilds could get it so wrong. So I mean, not just wrong, like catastrophically wrong, is beyond me. Um, and what's more, there the concurrent users on Steam the first like week that it was out was something like 8 million players playing the game at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it. I mean, you've played Rise, so you know that you would start a quest, you'd let other
Yeah.
people come up. 9 times out of 10, within 5 minutes of a hunt, you've got four players hunting with you, four human players hunting
Yes.
with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In Wilds, no matter what kind of lobby, whether I join a public recommended lobby, whether I'm in blah blah blah. I mean, like, pick your choice, pick your poison, whatever you want. 9 times out of 10, no other players show up in the mission. Whether I'm launching an SOS flare, whether I'm intentionally creating an online quest, etc., etc., etc. 9 out of 10 times, I do the quest alone.
Man,
So it's like
it's
there's 8 million
crazy.
players theoretically. I don't know what they're doing, but they're certainly not jumping on quests, or at least random quests. I mean, I guess maybe the population is just I only want to hunt this one monster. So like maybe if you like look for a particular hunt, then you'll find a ton of people online. But then that begs the question: why is there all of this other nonsense? Why is this all this other overhead? Right? I just
Yeah.
I I cannot stress enough that the online infrastructure is the worst part about the game, even worse than the
Hmm.
cutscenes, which were awful and terrible. Um, uh, and you know, like I didn't have a B. They're just they're just like
Yeah, no,
they're the
that's
worst.
already
They're
good
absolutely
enough.
the worst part
Yeah.
of the game. Like easily the
Yeah.
worst part of the game. And that's just one example, right? Then the second point was the chocobos. So by default, the second you get on one of the chocobos, the game completely takes over, and you might as well go grab a drink from the fridge, right?
Hmm.
The chocobo knows where all the monsters are. It knows the best routes to the monsters. In fact, several sections of the world are built such that once you go on this path, the chocobo just automatically jumps between these islands. It just basically turns into a non-interactive, cinematic. Um,
Hmm.
it's not fun, right? What's worse is that while the chocobo is in motion, you can't convince it to stop moving. Like if you start moving the stick to try to redirect it, it will always try to get back on the path to move forward. Now, by default, and I don't know why they designed it this way, the way you get on the chocobo and go into autopilot mode is by pressing up on the D-pad or some key on the keyboard if you're playing a keyboard and mouse mode. I don't know. If you want to go into manual mode on the chocobo, you press down on the D-pad. Why there are two inputs for this, I don't know, but there are. But here's the rub though. By default, I can't tell a difference between up automatic mode and manual mode by default. Um, if you get on the chocobo with all the default settings turned on and you put it in manual mode, it still goes running off on autopilot. So I was like,
I,
this is awful. I hate this. This isn't fun, right? Like the Palamutes were fun. It was fun to ride on
hmm.
them. It was fun to use them in
Yeah.
battle. It was like everything about the Palamute was awesome.
And they're cute, and you
Yeah,
can
and they're
do little
cute.
dog tricks, and you can
Mm-hmm.
pet them, and you can make them do
Mm-hmm.
tricks. Can you
Mm-hmm.
do that with the chocobos?
I think so, but I'm like I hate the thing
But you,
so much. I was like, I don't.
it's just,
Why would I?
they're
I
not cute
guess.
to look.
Yeah,
They're not even
they're
cute to look at.
they're
They're just
giant
ugly looking ostriches.
ostriches. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um. So So you go into the menus. I watched a video on this from Gaijin Hunter, who we've mentioned a couple of
Mhm.
times, and he
Yeah.
doesn't like it either. Like he actually like showed a video of him trying to grab an herb and couldn't grab the herb because every time he tried to direct the chocobo near enough to the herb to grab it, the chocobo would be like, "Nah, son," and it would go in a different direction. And so like
Oh, what?
no matter how hard he tried to get to that herb, the chocobo was like, "No, you can't have this," and tried to run away. So he was like, this was really frustrating to me. And then I started rooting around in these menus. And the menus are I mean, like, they're awful.
Yeah.
They're almost as bad as the multiplayer infrastructure. I mean, the entire front end user experience in Monster Hunter Wilds is just awful. And the UX designer should be ashamed of themselves, honestly. Um,
So it's just back to, I mean, I remember playing Rise. I got to a point where I was just doing muscle memory to
yeah,
do whatever I wanted to do in the game,
yeah,
and then rarely deviated from that
yeah,
from that point on,
yeah.
you know?
So you can disable all the autopilot stuff. Um,
Hmm.
and you have to root around in the menus, and they're in these esoterically labeled submenus. And to be able to turn them all off, you have to go to two completely different options submenus and turn everything off on two different spaces in two different ways. One in the gameplay submenu, one in the controls submenu, and it's like three things that you have to turn. It's not just like a single check, like don't hold my hand checkbox. It's like you have to go through and hit three separate things for manual mode to actually be manual mode, right?
Oh man.
And but you don't. The thing is though is you don't want to fully turn off autopilot, because for the same reason that you didn't want to turn off the autopilot in World, it's the same sort of form over function problem that World had, where the
Okay.
world was very pretty from a fidelity standpoint, from an ambient
Hmm.
animation standpoint, from a
Yeah.
lighting
Yeah.
standpoint. All of it's very, very pretty. It is so complicated and so big and so maze-like that looking at where a monster is on a map tells you basically nothing, right?
Because you don't know how to get there
Because you don't know how
because
to
it's too
get there because
convoluted.
it's too convoluted. And so you
Oh.
have to leave autopilot on to a certain extent, because when the monster runs to the other side of the map and it's like a 10-minute run and you don't have a base camp set up over there, right? Because you can do like these portable base camps. You just like fuck it and you just turn on autopilot and let the
Oh,
stupid chocobo take
jeez.
you there. And speaking of base camps, so you know how in Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter World before it, you could find these locations in the environment, and if you got the right
Hmm.
crafting pieces, you could
Yeah.
create a couple of new camps around the environment.
Yeah.
So you have a
Hmm.
couple of places to fast travel to. Well, that
Yeah.
system exists in Wilds. It's nice in that you don't really need much. It's very easy to construct them, a few resource points, I think, and nothing else. But
Hmm.
here's the problem with them. A, you can only have 10 across the entire game world active at any time. And B, because the monsters exist in the worlds at all times, you're going to get the message on your screen a lot that says Rathian has discovered your base camp. Rathian has destroyed your base camp. And when a
What?
monster destroys your base camp, you can't fast travel to it. So you have to ride all the way to the base camp. Now the camps rebuild themselves over time, but if you ride to the base
Wow.
camp, you can build it and rebuild it immediately, and it'll cost you resource points. And it's become a joke for me because I have all 10 camps where I want them activated across the map, and almost every minute I get that same message. Such and such a monster has destroyed or has discovered your camp. And then 30 seconds later, such and such a monster has destroyed your camp, right? It's hysterically stupid. It's just like, really? Like I it just and even dumber, like they on the list, like each different camps, it gives you the the threat location. Like, this is a dangerous place to put a camp. This is a safe place to put a camp. But for the life of me, I don't know um, why that matters, because the monsters still destroy the camps even in the safe locations. I mean,
Hmm.
there are
Hmm.
some that they can't get to, but in most cases, the monsters can get to all the camps, and they always find them, no matter how safe or dangerous they are. Right?
That sounds frustrating.
It's
That
super
doesn't sound
frustrating.
fun.
It's all of the sort of the detritus, that all these custom unique features that they put into the game, and I like none of them, right? Um, but but once you get past that, once you get rid of the horrible horrible cutscenes and the horrible horrible voice acting and the horrible horrible voice storyline, once you finish low rank and unlock the actual game, once you accept the fact that the base camps 9 out of 10 times are going to be broken so you can't fast travel to them, once you figure out how to turn off all of the autopilot stuff on the secret, you know, then it's Monster Hunter again.
Somewhere inside there is the Monster Hunter game, is what
Somewhere
you're saying.
inside there is the Monster Hunter game, right?
But
And
what's also frustrating though is, from what you're telling me, is the hunts sound like they take about the same amount of time, about 10,
mhm.
15 minutes. Then you're back to doing convoluted stuff again.
Mercifully, once you get into high rank, the level of convolution drops to a dull
Oh, okay.
roar. Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, there's all of the cutscenes are these garbage, talking head exposition
Hmm.
dumps that I don't really care about, so you can just fast forward
Yeah.
through them really quick. Um,
Hmm.
and so yeah, the game appropriately becomes what it should be, which is like 90% gameplay and just a little bit of flavor to provide justification for what you're doing, you know, why you're doing what you're doing. Um, And so yeah, like once you get past all of that garbage, all of that sort of the barnacles covering what is at its core Monster Hunter, what you have left is a pretty decent Monster Hunter game. The new
Hmm.
monster designs are excellent. There's not a single bad one in the bunch. They're all super cool. They're all interesting fights. I mean, there's a land octopus now, which is awesome. There's
Yeah.
a spider with a rose on its back, which is just maybe my favorite monster in. I don't know. It is one of my favorite monsters in all of Monster Hunter. It is so cool.
Huh.
Um,
Okay.
the sound design is amazing. It's a fun monster to fight. Just it's really, really excellent. All the armor looks cool. All the weapons look cool. You know, and 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 so there is a Monster Hunter underneath all of it, but there is
Mhm.
so much bloat that you have to kind of hack away at with a machete before you get to
Jeez.
the nougaty goodness in the center, right? So
Hmm.
there you go.
Well, I'll keep it on. I'll keep an eye on it. When it goes on sale, I'll pick it up, and then you and I can go do some hunts, and then I
Yeah,
can revisit this whole conversation and regurgitate everything you pretty much have said
yeah,
because
yeah. I will. I can tell you now, and um, it's up to you whether you want to choke down the cutscenes. But I did just because I like to
yeah,
experience things that I hate, so that when I complain about them and someone says, "Well, did you
you have
even
some.
do the thing?" I can go,
Yeah, yeah,
"Yes, yes, I
yeah.
did." Right.
Hmm.
Um, but I can tell you now, having watched all of the cutscenes from beginning to end and the main storyline, you can skip every single one. Don't even waste your time. Just
Yeah, but
skip them.
I thought you wanted context for when you're going to environments. Did
Right.
it help at all?
No, it did not. I am
Oh,
telling you
man.
definitively, every single cutscene you
Jeez.
can skip safely, and you will not have any problem understanding where the game is. Um,
Man.
Now, it is, up to you whether you want to watch the cutscenes. I'm not going to tell you your business, right?
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
but if I could go back in time 30 hours and tell Eric from 30 hours ago, trust me, you don't have to watch these cutscenes, I would have listened to Eric from, I would have listened to me from 30 hours in the future.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I don't know if just again watching footage of the game 'cause I don't really care about the spoilers for this game as much. Uh it just didn't seem to have the same kind of kitschy charm
mm-mm,
that Rise has, which is kind of doesn't take itself too seriously. Talking cats that, are trying to feed you, stuff like that.
mm-hmm,
Like it just feels like there's not as much humor, even though they have children all over in it.
yeah.
This
I
doesn't seem as like as campy,
There
I guess is the
are
right
there
word.
are creatures called Wudwuds that are kind of fun that they show up in later in the
Hmm.
game, and there's a Wudwud
Hmm.
called Rove, who is by far my favorite character in the entire game.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, and they even screw up felines. Frankly, you're right because they get rid of the feline kitchen, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
by default, all the felines just speak in regular English. And they don't even speak in the cat puns like they do in previous Monster Hunter
What?
games. Yeah, they just speak like regular characters.
Oh,
And you're like, well, what is the point of
what's the
this? Why
point?
didn't you just make them human? I don't understand. Right? Now,
Yeah.
at the very least, buried in the rat's nest of menu options, you actually can change the cat voices back to the original cat language, which as soon as I discovered this, of course I did, right? And that improves the cats by 5%, right?
5%? That's it?
Like, well, I
Okay.
mean, but yeah, like by default it's on and they have like silly, adults affecting childlike voice actors for them. But you know what? I rarely even use my cat. You know why? So I guess I could turn this off, but I don't know why I would intentionally make the game harder for myself. So going back to multiplayer mode, when you fire off an SOS flare to open the hunt up to anybody on the internet to join you, until a human player takes up one of the slots, eventually three other AI players,
Hmm.
characters show up to help you hunt, and they're all very good at their job. Um, I haven't tried this yet, but once I kind of, you know, consume all the new content, I'll probably go back and try it. I think that you could just stand there and let the AI completely fight the monster for you, and you
Yeah,
wouldn't
I
be able
know.
to do anything.
You were telling we were talking about this yesterday. Like I was curious, like
Yeah.
if you were gonna when you were gonna try this little experiment out.
So the upshot of having AI that good is that when the second AI helper shows up, your cat goes, "All right, I'll see you later," and then disappears, right? And
Oh
so
yeah, okay.
so you can go into the menu and you can change how, like, again, buried in the menus, you can change the settings of SOS flares so that it's, you know, the AI helpers won't show up, right?
Okay.
Um, but again, I don't know why I would do that. Why would I intentionally make the game more difficult? But you can do that. So, but
Mm-hmm.
but the result is the cat's never around, right? Because better AI shows up. You know what I'm saying? Like why they did 4 human AI? Why didn't they just add a second helper AI with that helper AI's cat instead of, you know? And
Yeah.
and the other thing that I don't understand is in Monster Hunter Rise, even with 4 players, you could still bring a dog or a cat with you. Like you couldn't bring
Yeah.
both, but
You
you could
could be
always.
one. Yeah, be one or the other.
Yeah,
Yeah. That
exactly.
was nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like, all right, um, why couldn't they do that in Wilds? Right? This Monster Hunter Rise was on the Switch, you know, and
Yeah.
it
And
could
on top of
handle.
that, there's a
Go
yeah,
ahead.
and there's a strategy involved too, especially
Right.
with your, Palico, because they could be a bombardier cat or
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
whatever, a mage cat, and it
Yep.
could actually help you with
Yep.
stuff. Like they'd uncover like health items, stuff
Yep.
like that. You'd actually strategize when you're fighting a
Mm-hmm.
monster to get, okay, I'm gonna bring this guy with me,
Mm-hmm.
because I need him. Yeah.
And that's gone. You get one cat, and that's the only cat you get for the whole game. You can't have different cats for different moods. And
Yeah.
the chocobos are hilarious because once you get into a battle, all they do is just stand around looking like idiots.
What?
They literally will just stand in a corner doing nothing. And I'm like, wait, Palamutes you could ride into battle and then
Yeah.
they would
Yeah.
still attack and they would still
They
heal.
still help you.
Right.
Yeah.
But not, no, the birds are stupid. Once you get off them, they can drive you anywhere in the world. They know exactly where to go and when to go there. But the second you hop off of them, their brain turns off and they just stand in a corner until you call them again.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I echo that sentiment. Like this game was made on the Switch, and yet now they're
Mm-hmm.
dumber.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like the Switch could support 4 human players and
Hmm.
4 Palicos, fine,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Um, but somehow Monster Hunter Wilds can't even get a chocobo to fight with you.
So are these issues that you're bringing up? Is it kind of are they permeating online? Are the other veteran Monster Hunters kind of annoyed too, or like what?
The
Because
reviews to this point have been universally positive.
yeah,
Um,
it's interesting.
and that's fine. I am clearly looking for something different from my Monster Hunter experience um, than other people are. To the point where I saw an article the other day where someone was saying, finally, Monster Hunter has a story that's worth paying attention to. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. So you're definitely in the minority in this one,
I absolutely
amongst your
am.
fellow hunters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But everything you're telling me is everything that's not compelling enough for me to want to buy it until sell a sale or something. But
Mm-hmm.
and it's disappointing, just yeah, it's a
Yeah.
bummer.
Once it goes on sale, and the first several sales, it won't be much, but like a year or
Oh,
two from
they
now, when they finally do deep cuts and it gets down below
yeah,
$50, maybe even
yeah,
$40, then I
yeah, then it's worth it.
$40, it's worth $40, in my opinion. It is not worth $70.
Yeah, that's an interesting question to raise because what would if you were to launch Rise today, what would you charge for that versus World? You know what I mean? Like, does
As
Rise justify a $70 price
I
tag?
mean, frankly, $60 is too much. If you can't make a game at the degree of, you know, Monster Hunter, um, like I just think I think games cost too much in general, and this is
Yeah.
a
Okay.
whole other conversation
Yeah. It's a
about
whole. Yeah. That
if
is.
the
Yeah.
economy of games is such that you have to charge $70 to justify the game that you're making, maybe you should refocus the game that you're making, or
Yeah.
maybe there needs to be a larger conversation about how we monetize games and don't just fall back onto the same garbage live services or subscription
Hmm.
service schema that most executives like, okay, this is good enough, we're never going to think about this ever again, right?
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
but that's a whole other conversation. Realistically, given the hundreds of hours that I put into Monster Hunter Rise, yeah, I guess $70 ultimately is a reasonable price for it, right?
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
I'm less concerned about the fact that it costs $70 over time than I am about the fact that, it was so, it's like $70 is a big hit to your pocket in one
Hmm.
go for a single
Yeah.
game, right?
Yeah.
Um, Especially given that, you're committing to this game sight unseen, um,
Yeah.
right? Like, you know. So anyway, that like I said, that's a different conversation. But yeah, I think ultimately monetary value, Monster Hunter Rise, probably I got more than $100 of value out of it.
Yeah.
If we're
I
talking
would
about
agree with that.
enjoyment plus the,
Yeah.
the time sink, how much time I spent with it, easily the
Yeah.
value is over $100, right?
Yeah. I would agree with that. I'm in the
Right.
same,
Yeah.
same. Yeah.
Right now with
It's,
Wilds, it's under 40, right? Now,
jeez.
I'm only 10 hours into actual Monster Hunter, right? And so
Hmm.
maybe once I play with some friends and I get to some more of the end game content and lock all the really crazy stuff that requires a lot of work, my opinion will change. But yeah, right
Yeah.
now, I mean, I think based on the litany of critiques that I had tonight, I don't think it should come as any surprise that I don't think it's worth above about $40.
Hmm.
So
Well, cool. Well, yeah, time will tell as we go
yeah,
forward with into the
I
next few months to see what they do with the game. But
yeah, yep,
yeah,
yep. So I feel like this isn't the last night we'll have a conversation about Severance or
no,
Monster Hunter. So
no, I don't think so either. I'm sure. Well, we have the finale to talk about, I'm
yeah,
sure, for
yeah.
Severance, and yeah. Um, but meanwhile, on my side here, I got a pretty good chunk of rough animation done for Calamity, picking up her tail and throwing onto the bike. It still needs some refinement, but
Mm-hmm.
um, got the basic poses there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so we're in pretty good shape for tonight. It's a good stopping point.
Cool.
Um,
Excellent.
yeah,
Looks good. Yeah, it seems like you've got all the critical keyframes in at this point.
yeah. And I'm gonna try to plus it a little bit more and try to do some more finagling and subtle stuff
Mm-hmm.
at the same time. But yeah. If it looks like if she's picking up her tail, great. Um, I would like to take more time to emphasize how heavy it is, but the fact that she's even doing it at all shows it is heavy.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so, but yeah, that's more nuanced stuff for later. But yeah, we're in a pretty good spot for tonight, and yeah, we'll move on.
All right. Well, we'll leave it there for the evening then. Please consider heading on over to calamityjane.rocks. That'll take you to our Patreon site, and there you can become a subscriber and help us make this cartoon a reality. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube, which presumably you already have since you're watching this stream. We're also on Instagram. You can check us out there, and we post updates and things of that nature. And you can get links to our other sites through the Instagram site, and we'll do fun stuff there from time to time. But in any case, letting you all know if you're watching this after the fact, I will be gone for the next 2 weeks. James, you're toying around with the idea of maybe doing a solo outing.
Yeah, I might try to. Yeah, because I always love saying that, and then
Yeah,
uh, and then things come happen. But
yeah,
yes, that's always been the plan is to kind of try to get something going for a
yeah,
half an hour and just we'll post it. So
yeah.
maybe
It
we'll get
is.
something up going next Monday.
It is my fault. I'll be out of town next week. I'll be at the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, And then the following week, my first board meeting as technical director for Onward Theater is on Monday night. So I had to cancel the next two
Congrats.
Mondays. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, then we'll be back. I'll be back in, I guess, beginning of April at this point.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah, March is a crazy month. But
Yeah.
in any case, stay safe out there, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Good night.